before we move forward, should we discuss the assignment to start with?
Yes, sir.
Let's look at the assignment. Okay. Okay. Okay, I've opened the assignment on my side. So likewise, so just open the assignment at your end as well. So, okay, so the first question, I asked this question, and you observe that a population of dragonflies shows an oscillatory pattern. Oscillatory pattern, that is population density is changing roughly periodically with time. Propose to a hypothesis with a brief reasoning for each of them for the observed pattern. So, I won't discuss this question today right away, but this will be something we will maybe discuss at the end of the class today. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as it is. What is the biological interpretation of R0 and K in the population model? Nt plus 1 is equal to R0 times Nt times 1 minus Nt by K. So the interpretation of R0 is clear. It's basically the growth rate when the population is size is very small. Is that fine? Because basically when you so one way to think about that is, as I was okay, sorry, I'll just share one note. What's a good way to think about these kind of questions? Okay, so I haven't shared it. So you can see this my window now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you have this equation, right? Nt plus 1 is equal to Nt times R of Nt. That's a very general equation. So basically, what is R of Nt? R of Nt is basically the ratio of population sizes across generations. So this you can sort of loosely call growth rate, but it's technically not growth rate the way we traditionally define. So keep that in mind. And for the logistic model, for the discrete time logistic model, this R of Nt is basically R0 times 1 minus Nt over K. Okay, so if RT is sort of the factor by which population grows across generations, then R0 will be the maximum, is basically that factor when Nt is close to 0, right? Is it right? So R0 is basically the in some sense the growth rate where the population size is very small. Okay, likewise, now what is K? So now when you put Nt is equal to K here, the growth basically becomes 0. So there is no one single word or one single way to explain this. This is basically the population at which population size at which the ecosystem collapses to extinction. So that's one way of writing it. Then maybe as long as you sort of get this broad idea, I think it's totally fine. So what is the wrong answer? So the wrong answers are carrying capacity. This is not carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the population that an ecosystem can sustain. But this is not a sustainable population, right? K is actually unsustainable population in this model. So it is not carrying capacity. It is not the population at which it can remain stable. So K is a highly unstable population. In fact, it's a population at which the entire system collapses. Okay. So as long as you have written something on these lines, it should be fine. Now the third question is basically, in third question we have R is basically is equal to e power R times 1 minus, is that right? This is the exact form I used. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So now what is R0? R0, as I have defined, is basically R and nt is equal to 0, right? And then therefore it will be e power R. Okay. So R0 is equal to e power R. And then that's the interpretation of, that's how you compute, that's the 3a, what's the equivalent of R0 in this model, that's actually e power R. Okay, and then what is the possible interpretation of k in this model? Now if you put nt is equal to k, what do you get? It's basically e power 0, it's 1, right? So what happens when R is equal to 1? What happens to the population when R is equal to 1?
It
It's
remains
equilibrium. So it's actually equilibrium population.
Equilibrium population.
So basically k is an equilibrium population. Okay. Now this alone does not tell you whether it is stable or unstable. So you have to use the criterion I had mentioned. Okay. So that's what k is. Okay, and it turns out that it is indeed stable if we actually do the calculation. I was not expecting that you will do the stability calculation in this question, and it is a stable population and an equilibrium population, and it can be interpreted as carrying capacity in this in this model. Okay, so k can be, if any of you have written that k is carrying capacity, that's actually fine. Now, of course, yeah, sure.
When is carrying capacity not equilibrium population? Like, aren't they equivalent terms here?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
A stable equilibrium population is carrying capacity. The only, okay, here is the thing. Okay, I think carrying capacity is used to mean that it's also the population beyond which if you increase, it sort of, carrying capacity is also used to mean that it's sort of, it's the number of individuals or the density of population that an ecosystem can sustain, right? Now it's actually possible that there are actually, as we will discover in one of the later classes, there are many populations that are possibly stable at equilibrium. Okay, so in such cases, it's not very clear how which of them can be called carrying capacity, but that's something we will discuss later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now this model 2 has two parameters, eliminate. So you use the same trick, just write x is equal to nt by k. You will get a simpler equation. Okay, that should hopefully be. Okay, now fourth question was about this one. I myself haven't worked this out. So, but basically the 36 hours and 1 hour has 3 generations, right? So we are talking about 108 generation, is that right? So we have about 108 generations, right?
if you include the initial at 0 time, so that would be 109.
Okay, yeah, I'm not too bothered about that one difference. This is not
Yes.
a KVPY or a gate exam where we are going to ask you an exact number. Okay, so 108, 109, both of them are fine by me. So basically, the number of individuals at 36 generations, 36 hours. Sorry, maybe I'll write it in the page. So number of individuals at 36 hours is basically n0 initial population times r times the number, let's call n is equal to number of generations, and we know that it's actually around 108 for the given number. So basically n, T in this case will be N0 times 2 power 108, right? So that's a pretty large number, 2 power, 2 power 108. So maybe let me just, I'm just doing this on the fly. I could totally get this wrong. So we can write it this way: 2 power 10 times 10. As I'm actually finding a lower bound here to make my life a bit easy. But I can also do this. Is it fine? I have taken 8 outside and I'm writing it this way. Oh no, did I make a mistake? This is fine. Yeah, right. This is 2 power 100. This is 2 power 8. Is everyone fine with this?
Yes, sir.
And N0, 2 power 10 is 1000, and 1024, and that's approximately 10 power 3. So what we have is 10 power this one, 2 power 8. Is that fine? Okay. Now, what is the typical mass of a bacteria?
1 picogram.
1 picogram. 10 power minus 15.
Okay, weight of 1 is how much? Just what's picogram, by the way?
10
10
power
power
minus
minus
12.
10 power minus 12. 12 grams. Is that right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
10 power minus 15 kg. Is that right? So the weight at time t will be 10 power minus 15 kg. That's per individual into number of individuals. So I think I had given N0 to be 1. So it's 10 power 30 into 2 power 8 roughly. So I can assume this to be approximately 10. So this is 10 power 31, 10 power minus 15. This is 10 power 16 kg. Okay. Is that all? Is that the rough number that many of you got?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the next part of the question asked, compare the number as well as the weight to some number you know. So let's say 10 power 31 is the number. So what's the number that you can compare this with? 10 power 31 bacteria.
So just one thing, 2 power 8 should be of order 100. So.
Oh, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
that should be 10 power 2.
Sorry, actually I read 2 power 8 as 8. So okay. 70. Okay, thank you. 2 power 8 is 256. So actually, we have we can ignore the 2.5 and 100 is fine. Okay. Yeah. So let's think about the number. Okay, 10 power 32. Okay, so what's what number that you're familiar with, or that sort of compares to that number, 10 power 32 bacteria?
Avogadro's number, but that's still pretty small, I think.
Avogadro's number. Okay. So for example, 1 mole of any chemical has 10 power 23. 10 power 23 particles, right? Approximately. So this is like, if you were to express this in terms of moles of bacteria, then maybe it's 10 power 9 moles. Okay, that's still pretty huge. Any other? That's a reasonable way of thinking about it. Okay, it's actually 10 power 9 moles. 10 power 9 is 1 billion, right? That's 1 billion moles. Okay, what else?
A number of DNA base pairs on Earth.
Number of DNA base pairs
On Earth.
Okay. So including all organisms?
Yes, sir. So I found the number to be 5 into 10 power 37 base pairs, and 10 power 33 bacteria will themselves have 4.6 into 10 power 39 DNA base pairs. I'm assuming that the bacteria is E. coli.
That's fair enough. Okay. So you're saying the number of bacteria here are equal to total number of DNA base pairs in the entire world. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Currently in the world. Okay. So meaning, if you are actually letting this bacteria grow for so long, 36 hours, with unlimited resources, right? So the condition I gave you corresponded to unlimited resources, right? Because that student was trying to make sure that every bacteria has equal amount of resources across time. Okay, so then the number of bacteria actually have so many. Okay, fine. That's one way to think about it. Anything else?
We also have weight of Earth, sir.
But the only thing is, something The only thing I would keep in mind when you're comparing is that, if you're comparing with something equally unknown, it's not necessarily very helpful. But it's a subjective choice. I fully recognize that. Yeah, somebody was saying weight of Earth. That would be certainly reasonable for the weight part. What about the numbers? What about the number of
It's the total amount of microbiota present in all the humans on 1,000 Earths.
All the humans. So what was the last part you said?
In 1,000 Earths. Like
in
this.
1,000 Earths. Oh my God. Okay. So in one Earth, it's about 1,000 of this.
Yes.
Okay.
And I chose the lower bound, so like it will be like.
How did you know that? What is per human being? What is the microbiota per human being?
I did the calculation. I don't remember it exactly.
Okay.
It was something around 10 to the power 14, something like that.
Per human being. So about 10 to the power 14 microbial individuals, if you were to say it that way, per human in general. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
It's still a very rough estimate, but
okay. Yeah. Basically, are you saying that roughly the weight of microbiota in our body is about 1 kg, or actually less than it will be 0.1 kg if what you're saying is correct?
Yes, actually we have more bacterial cells than human cells.
Yeah, but I thought that because of that reason I thought our body weight should also be proportionate, right? I mean, unless the human cell weight mass is much more than the
not exactly sure. I found that exact estimate from a paper.
I mean, there is nothing like an exact estimate. No, estimate is by definition approximate.
Yeah.
No, exact estimate actually doesn't make sense. No, basically, you're saying an estimate. Okay. I mean, I understand the point. Okay, that's interesting way. And any other ways that people thought about this, the numbers?
Quite similarly, I found an estimate for the number of bacterial cells, like total number of bacterial cells on Earth, which is 10 power 31. Our estimate would be 10 power 32, right?
Okay.
10 times that. So I thought it was interesting to compare because that was also total bacterial cells.
I see. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So the current estimated number of bacteria in the entire Earth is actually of this number. Okay, cool. So I'm sure when we read the assignment, we'll get to know more of these kind of comparisons. But all of these are fine. So when you're choosing, you just have to choose something that's also something that's sort of relatable. That's a basic idea. Okay. Okay. Now let's think about the weight. 10 power 17 kg. On the mass. I mean, I should have used the mass throughout. I don't know why I used weight. Sorry.
Yeah, it is denser than the densest object on Earth if you assume a 1 liter beaker. It's like it's 10,000 times more denser than neutron stars.
Oh wow, that's right.
So that sort of puts it in perspective. That's all.
Okay. So maybe it would have become a black hole. So dense.
Oh, sir, a black hole of that mass will have a Schwarzschild radius of a few micrometers.
Okay, so maybe that's very interesting. Okay, good.
So
the mass is so the mass we got is 10 power 17 kgs for the bacteria alone, but the mass is an estimate of the mass of all life forms on Earth itself is only 10 power 16 kgs.
I see. Okay, and I didn't think of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So know how unreasonable the conditions I gave you in that question was. Okay. Any other ways to do this?
This is actually
somebody said mass of Earth, by the way. That's 10 power 24 kg, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sun would be 10 power 24.
This mass is equivalent to like few satellites of Saturn.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. How much is the moon? I forgot actually. Around 20 maybe.
22.
Okay. Okay. Any other comparisons? So that was actually a very interesting comparison. The entire life biomass actually is around 16 kgs.
So the mass of all the oceans on Earth is 10 times this weight.
Okay.
So if the student wanted to look out for some beaker or something.
The ocean is the right beaker to look at. Okay. Okay, that's great. Very nice. I'm sure you'll have more answers. Is there anybody else who wants to say what they came up with?
Just the Earth's atmosphere is 10 raised to 18 kgs.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So Earth's atmosphere is 10 power 18. Earth's water is around 10 power, again, this 10 power 18. Interesting. Which means that I guess a lot of the Earth's mass actually comes from the solid mass, right? Solid, because the total Earth's mass is 10 power 24 kg. So water and both the atmosphere constitute 1/1,000,000th of the weight of mass of Earth.
Okay. Since in the question you've asked weight of the beaker, were we not supposed to include the weight of the media as well?
Yeah, and excrete also.
Yeah, that also is very high actually. Density.
Yeah, the weight of the thing is, with the weight of the beaker would necessarily include the weight of the resources required to sustain bacteria, right? And the excreta usually comes out of the same resources. So if you include one over the other, it's fine. But one can nitpick some of these things. But I'm glad you also thought about this point. But I didn't think of this at all. I was thinking of when I said weight of the beaker, I only thought of the biomass of the bacteria. I didn't think of the resources point of view. But you're right. That's also an important point. Yeah. So, but you will just get a factor of 2, by doing that. So you won't change the order of magnitudes.
I got an order of times 10 of this mass.
Say that again. What's the multiplicative factor?
I got a factor of 10.
Yeah, basically it wouldn't. Because we are doing order of magnitude calculations here. So that may not change the overall, discussion we're having in a substantial way.
I got it actually 10 power 19 overall. 10 power
19. So you think it's an additional factor of 100 from what I have written?
Yes.
Okay.
It depends upon the spacing and distances.
And it also depends on what kind of resources you assume. The most efficient resource, you lose only 1/10, right? If there was, a primary resource for bacteria that just in the most efficient way, 10% assumption, 10% conversion of energy would only require a factor of 10. Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for all these points. Very interesting. So that's the question number 4. Then going to question number 5. So I hope you read both the articles, but I hope you also made it. I hope the question was sufficiently clear. I actually made the word "you" bold here, right? 3 criteria you will use, by which I meant that you should not be writing what they have already written. Okay, and I also clarified that in the discussion on Canvas. So I hope that by reading this, you have come up with your own criteria to sort of evaluate mathematical model. I can understand that if I have asked you 3, one of them might be some rehashing of what's already there, but I'm hoping that 2 will be something that you thought of on your own. Okay. And then the second point, again, I'm not going to discuss it right away. But if you want to say anything, just let me know. What did you think of this point about importance of robust results? And the question that I'm asking is, what's the problem with having a robust result when you're having to interpret data?
It gives a sense of false significance to the result.
Why would you say false significance?
And like in certain cases, a result which is less robust might be of more biological significance when you're interpreting real data than that of less robust result.
Another thing is robustness by definition is when multiple, like how they stated in the paper, multiple lies give the same conclusion. So sometimes you'll have multiple effects. You won't be able to pinpoint which is actually causing the trend which we see in our results. So you can attribute to any of these effects without proper biological significance.
That's absolutely right. Very good point. Yeah, I think both of them are really good points. Yeah. Did everybody understand the points they made? I hope everybody else understood the points that these 2 made. The first one was about the fact that just because a result is very robust doesn't mean it's actually a very important result biologically. The second point was that, let's say if there are 3 different, in fact, different types of biological processes that are giving you same result, right? And then now when you want to interpret biological data, and if the result is what you have got, and we don't know which of the three actually caused, in your data. So the robustness also means that you are limited in your inference. Okay. Go ahead. Somebody was saying, Sean, I think.
Yeah, I was just saying that it also makes your inference more subjective. As I think someone said that for a result to be robust, it has to have multiple lines of inference.
Yeah.
So overall, it makes your inference more subjective. So it comes down to the researcher.
Okay. Subjective in the sense of picking which one is correct. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Researchers may sort of, may use their own degrees of freedom and prior knowledge instead of data alone to arrive at some conclusions, right? To prefer one hypothesis over the other hypothesis, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next.
It could also be possible that because of these robust results, the researchers starts to sort of assume that the biological data is supposed to fit in it. And when it does not, so rather than questioning the model, they'll start assuming that the data points which do fit in are the correct ones, while the other ones are actually wrong. So it should be the observations which are driving the modeling, not the other way around.
I don't think I understood your point. Can you explain it again? I got a bit confused.
All right. So if you have a very robust result of modeling
from a model,
then,
okay.
Right. So and then we go out and then we find real biological data points, and if they don't come back the ones that we expected, right, from the expected, it could be possible because I believe that the model is robust, that I only take the points which actually do make sense with my model, and I don't take the other ones.
Oh, okay. If you have data that supports the model, and if you also have data that do not support the model, you will only cherry pick the data. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Cherry picking is not the right thing.
I think modeling should be based on observations, and observations should not be made based on a model which you already have.
This last statement is actually very interesting. What do others think about this? Should modeling always be based on observations alone?
Can't you have a model as a priori hypothesis? Like you use the model to generate your hypothesis and then test it with empirical data.
Yeah. So what is the problem with that, Karthike? Why were you saying that modeling? See, modeling is one way. I mean, of generating hypotheses, right? Modeling is nothing more than a way of generating hypotheses. Why do you say that modeling must be only driven by data? That's like saying that your hypothesis must only be driven by data. Hypothesis should not be driven by data. Hypothesis should be driven by your thinking and your current understanding of the system, right?
Right. But what I wanted to say was, if I have observations based on, like, I can ask questions based on certain observations which I already have. So if I have, say, something like birds doing something like sexual selection and things like that, based on these observations, I can ask questions, create a model to answer that, and then check whether the assumptions which I put in my model and then in real life, whether they are the same or not. So there needs to be a certain ground with which you're asking questions in modeling, and that should come from observation.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is an important point. I think we will revisit this point in many of our discussions later also. Okay. Any other comments, thoughts, questions?
Like both false positives and false negatives can be given as an argument as well, right?
For what?
For robust ones. Okay. In case of robust results, false positives and false negatives are there is a probability.
If we have a very robust result, why? Oh, it could be a false positive in the sense that you found the You found some observation,
models,
but for a different reason. That would be false positive, right?
Yeah, that could be the reason, or most of the models do have a basic same biological assumption. If that assumption is changed and you get a different result, this is not accounted for, and that could lead to a false positive.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, I think I partially understood the false negative part. I don't think I understood. False negative is when you wrongly reject something.
Yeah.
Right?
Another person initially told if there are multiple processes and like if under different conditions different results are obtained, and you are trying to find the same result under different assumptions, you'd lose data.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think all these are important points. So if there are no more questions, let's go forward. I will do one after a very short discussion. I will ask you to do more work today. So if we remember correctly, we had this simple looking model that we are discussing, right? Discrete time logistic model. What all have we learned? We have learned a few things about this model, at least in some parameter regime, right? So we were drawing as a function of R0, what are the equilibrium values of population size in this model. Okay, so we found that for R0 less than 1, okay, extinction is a stable equilibrium, whereas for R0 greater than 1, we had a finite population size that was stable. Okay, and then this was R0 value of 1 was here, and then we have done up to 2 right now in our calculations, and between 1 and 2, 0 was an equilibrium, but it was an unstable equilibrium. Okay, and of course the equilibrium being stable and unstable, we are basically inferring entirely based on the the simple simulations that you all did last time in the lab. Okay, so far everything is fine. Do you have any questions on this diagram? This diagram has a name. Okay, so you're seeing something here. You're seeing that there is an equilibrium state, extinction, and that extinction equilibrium becomes stable to unstable at this point, right? And a new stable equilibrium emerges beyond 1. Okay, so these kind of points, they are called bifurcation points. So bifurcation points are the values of the driver where the stability of a population changes, stability of the state changes. Okay, so here the stable equilibrium is becoming unstable, and sort of a new branch is new stable branch is emerging. Okay, so we have done this up to 2, and we have done this numerically, which is fine. I also told you criterion, for both equilibrium and for stability. How do we define equilibrium? In a very general case, let's consider a very general model of population written in this format. So here f of xt contains basically that r term, r of xt, and it's multiplied by xt. Okay, so for example, for the logistic model, this entire term will be f of xt. So how do we define equilibrium for this model? We calculate equilibrium by solving this equation. So I'm hoping that for those who needed math refresher, I hope the idea of solving an equation like this, finding the roots, I hope those are now clear from the assignment that was given as a part of refresher assignment. That's finding equilibrium. Now, how do you know stability? To know stability, you need to calculate the derivative of this function f of x and calculate this at the value x star. And if this value is less than 1, then you say it is stable. A stable equilibrium basically means that if I now add a few individuals to this equilibrium population or subtract a few individuals from this equilibrium population, then it comes back to the original equilibrium. Okay, so any perturbations that are small, okay, they come back to the equilibrium. Okay, so that's called stable equilibrium. Okay, so we have this is the broad revision of what we have found so far. Now let us do a bit more of work today. So what's the work you will do? So you will continue the work, okay, and then vary the parameter R0 now between 2 to 3.5. Is that fine? Okay, and then I'm going to divide this class into various groups now. So in each group, what we will do, you repeat the exact same process. Okay, and you repeat the exact same process and find out for different values of R0, what is that you find? What is that you are finding as the final population size? You remember that analytically, by solving that equation, we claim that X star is equal to R is an equilibrium. Okay, and the another equilibrium was this. We already know this, but let us continue the numerical exploration a bit more. Okay, so now how do we do this in the most efficient and interesting way? I'm just thinking about that. Of course, I'm going to divide you into groups. Each group will work on on doing these simulations. I hope that you already have the previous last week's spreadsheets and all available with you for easy access. And when we create the groups, the groups will be, you will form a new set of groups, by the way, that people will not same. It will be again randomized when the way the groups will form be entirely random. So what I would like is the following. There are two ways to do this. I'm just wondering what's the most interesting way. Okay, so maybe let's do the following. So for each of the group, I would like you to do the following. Okay, first do the following. You already know some results, right? Plot this analytically expected. We already know that this is one equilibrium 0, right? The another one is 0, this one, something like this. So plot this function, this is R0, sorry. R01 minus divided by R0 between 0 and 3.5. Okay, so because we're distincting up to 3.5 only, plot this X star. Okay, that's the first thing you will do. The next thing you will do is start with 2 and between 2 and 3 or between R0, between 2 and 3, increment at intervals of maybe 0.1. Okay, and then again you start with some X0, some initial population size, wait for sufficiently long and find what you think is, if you really wait for long enough, what will be the value of X infinity? What's the value of what we call an equilibrium value? Okay, now you do this between R0 at this interval, and between 3 and 3.5, do this at a finer interval and the exact same procedure. And then you will have now numerically simulated value of what I called X infinity, and then again plot them on the same graph. Okay, let's say you have now found the same values, beyond 2, and plot them. Okay, is the idea clear to everyone? What you need to do? Any questions? So between 2 and 3 at intervals of 0.1. Between 3 and 3.5 at intervals of 0.05. Of course, use everything at your disposal. Make plots of xt versus t. Okay. Also eventually I want to see r versus X infinity. Okay.
I'm not absolutely sure what we have to plot. Do we have to plot X star versus R or xt plus 1 versus R?
See, you are plotting X star versus R, but where X star is given by this formula.
Right.
That's the first thing you will do. Okay.
Yeah.
Second thing you will do is you will again use the spreadsheet and start with some population size x0, and then you drag it for sufficiently long and find what I call x infinity. X infinity is when you think x won't change anymore. Is that fine?
This
and
is
then
the old formula.
Sorry?
This is using the previous formula, the xt is equal to x.
Using exactly, yeah. So, basically, when, how do you get this? Recursively apply that, xt is equal to, f of xt. Xt plus 1 is equal to f of xt, where f of xt is given by that, basically given by this equation. Okay. And do this for the different values of R0. For each value of R0, you will have a value of x infinity, right? Where you think it's not going to change anymore. Okay. And then also plot the same thing on the same graph. Is that fine?
Yep.
And you do this between 2 and 3 points. With the resolution I have suggested, you should feel free to make changes. Again, there are many things to do. What happens if x0 was a different value? That's another question to think about, and so on. Okay, this is the basic thing I'm expecting you to do, and and then once you do, again, as always, just put them on a 1 or 2 PowerPoint slide and explain your results. What did you find? Summarize your results and interpret your results. Is that fine? And do you think it's 2:42 now? Will you be done with this by 3:30?
I just have one clarification.
Sure.
Infinity, since we are taking x star stabilizes with increase in r at certain point, x infinity we calculate by taking r naught to be a very high value. Can we do that?
No. See, let's say you fix r0 is equal to 2, right?
Yes.
For r0 is equal to 2, you start with some x0.
Okay.
And then you compute x2, x1, x2, x3, x4, x4.
Yes.
You compute that using this formula recursively again and again and again. X infinity is a name that I'm giving, which is technically not, you can never really do x infinity, right? Okay, let me just change it then.
I understand it. Thank you.
So it's basically x sub capital T, where capital T is a very large number.
Yes.
But the function of x, if we use the same as the one we used for like last Friday.
Say that again, sorry.
I'm saying, is the function we have to use to calculate xt plus 1, is it the same as the one we used earlier?
Yes, this is the function, logistic model. Okay. So you're all going to use the discrete time logistic model. So that's where we started out. For discrete time logistic model, we know all these things already, right? We have done up to 2. I'm now basically going beyond 2.
Sir,
any other questions? Yes.
With respect to the plot, you mentioned about xt, right? So you're trying to make us go for a higher time value and find the value of xt. But won't that be similar to x star at some point?
That's what I would like you to find out. Okay.
Okay. And the other question is with respect to the x star versus r naught graph, we have values from 0 to 2 from the previous lab. So we need to plot that as well as the further points, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Let me just write this clearly. This is plot x t versus r. It must be the opposite, right? So xt will be on the y-axis. Where capital T is a very large value of t. Any other questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, we can break into different rooms. I'm going to close the window. I'm going to unshare this window. So let me start the breakout rooms. I think there are again 55 people. So how many? So the last time there was the group numbers were reasonable. The 5 people per group was good, right? Some had 6. But usually some had 5, but 5 is a good number, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I'm going to create, and open all the rooms. should have received invitations to join. So please join, and then I will keep visiting you all. Some of you have not joined. Pranav, Pavan, Lakshya. Lakshya has 2 accounts here. At least one of you must join. One Lakshya has joined. Okay, I think it's only us now. There is one Lakshya still hanging around here, but I think you should be okay.
Sir, can you please enable the screen sharing mode? Hello.
Hey, what were you saying? Sorry.
Can you enable the screen sharing mode?
1 second. I think Shoaib, can you do it? I'm not the co-host. Shoaib or Arun?
Is it possible to turn on the screen share for a bit? Because we have a hard time trying to share it.
Yeah. 1 second. Arun, are you there? Arun or Shoaib? Yeah, it's done. Yeah.
Hi, Arun, can you, hello, is anyone there?
Yeah.
Then can you send me to group 9? My laptop got hanged and I'm out of that zone, so I have to go back.
Wait, I'll ask somebody. Wait. Group 9, no?
Yes.
Okay. Shoaib, are you there?
Hi, Tanveen.
Yeah, can you do that? Or Arun can only do it? Yeah, you're not audible, Shoaib. Yeah, okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think he went. Yeah. I don't know, Arun sent him or... yeah, I don't know.
Hello. Shubha, what room should you be in?
But the mean
Hello?
of the oscillation is
Hi,
a bit
Shubha.
higher.
Hey Vishu,
Hi.
I got booted out of my Zoom call.
What's your room number?
Power cut.
What's your room
Could you
number?
put me back in my breakout room number 8?
8. Okay. So I know that most of several of you have done what was needed, and several of you said that maybe the plotting is the only step that's pending. So which group is ready to show some results? Can anybody volunteer to show what you have found?
We are ready, so group 8.
Oh, excellent. Go ahead, please. Share your screen. Let me just make sure. Yeah, you should be able to share the screen. Yeah, switch on the video, please.
We are group 8 and we did the plots. First we plotted what was asked using this given formula, and we observed that the X star increases monotonically. This is just given by this formula.
Okay. Everyone got this? Anybody who had trouble with this part? Is everyone able to do this without any difficulty, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If there anybody had a difficulty, just let us know. Okay. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide, Praveen.
So later, next we tried plotting between 2 and 3 for R0 values between 2 and 3. And we started observing oscillations from 2.8 itself, but the oscillation started dying out quite like after. So 2.5 also does a small oscillation over here. 2.8 and 3, they oscillate quite a lot, but they eventually tend to die out. But for 3 value, we see that there are some oscillation which we tried to like 1,000 points, they still oscillate. Okay. But beyond 3, it's a very vigorous oscillations.
Yeah, let's go back to the previous one. So when you all plotted X versus T, is that how it looks? So basically, if I'm right, Praveen, you are saying that between 2 and 3, let's set ignore very close to 3, where there are oscillations that may not die out. But does everyone also find that you find a stable equilibrium between largely between 2 and 3? Yes, is it fine? Okay. This is a very nice plot. Okay. And at 3, you think the oscillations do not decay.
Yeah, we tried till 1,000 time step 1,000. It still didn't decay, but it appears to be. So we're not sure.
Okay. So you may have to learn for 1 million generations may die out. We don't know, right?
So the amplitude of it is constantly reducing, but the amplitude ever so slightly reducing that it wasn't actually anywhere close to dying.
It's not going anywhere.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, excellent.
So beyond 3,
beyond 3. Okay,
it's pretty vigorous. So from 3 to 3.4, we got 2 stable equilibrium points, and 3.4 to 3.45 and beyond, we start to observe 4 points.
Okay, let's just stick to 3.4 only. Okay, just to be sure. Okay. Let's just stick between 3 and 3.4. Is it possible to, do you have a zoomed in version of this, or is it the only thing you have? Because you have plotted up to 40, just so we observe it closely what's happening. And you have overlaid. Is that possible to?
Bharadwaj, can you share your screen with the actual
anybody else who has a?
Just a minute, I'll share it.
It's fine. Maybe is there any other group who wants to show in the region 3 to 3.5?
I can 3 to 3.5.
Between 3 and 3.4. Okay. Is there any other group? Maybe it's group 8. No.
So,
let's give option to one more group to show the results. Any other group who wants to volunteer to show?
We can show it. Group 7.
Oh, please go ahead. Yeah. Can you unshare?
I think someone else spoke.
Can you unshare Praveen now, and then the other person? Yeah. Thank you very much, Praveen. Very nice results. Very nice plotting as well. Plotting is something a lot of people ignore, when you're getting results. But I think it was very clear the way you have plotted. somebody from group 7. Who are all group 7? Group 7 members are, so group 8 members were Praveen, Priyansh, Shubha and Vempala Bharadwaj. Okay, so group number 7, Amish, Rikara, Tanvi, not Tanvi, Tanvi not there, but Tejas. There's somebody else who might be missing from somebody else has dropped out maybe.
No, Tejas was here. Kishore was also in our group.
Oh, okay. As of now, there are who any of you can.
Yeah, I can present.
Yeah, Shikar.
Yeah.
So also we got the bifurcation plot. You can show that.
Yes, absolutely. Show me the time series first between 2 and
right.
3 and 3.5. Again, it's a bit.
So yeah, larger values, but we saw it was sort of a mess. It was
This
hard
is
to
nice.
see what's happening.
This is between. This is at what?
Yeah, we went from 2.4 all the way up to 3 with smaller intervals, and you can see that there are oscillations, but it's a little hard to decipher what's happening.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And we also tried it for, so we tried with a much coarser grain, so 2.53, 3.5. And less than 3, from what we could tell at least, for the values we tried, it just, you get one value. But at around 3, it seems to be oscillating between 2 values. So initially it decayed, but we don't know if it will continue decaying forever, because at this point, so I didn't take the values out of the computer, but it looks like it's stable. And since it's deterministic, if it oscillates between 2 points, it will oscillate forever, right?
Okay.
And at 3.5, it looks like there are 4 points, but it looks like it's still oscillating constantly, but between 4 distinct points.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what you see if you.
Okay. Now you have plotting XT, X capital T versus R.
Yeah. So the stable X capital T. So we ran it for 1,000 time steps and took the last, say 100 values and took the unique ones among the two.
Okay.
So up until 3, there's only one stable value.
Okay.
But then you see it split into 2.
Okay.
So we haven't plotted it past 3.5. So we don't.
That's fine. That's fine. I intentionally did not ask you beyond 3.5.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very good. So very nice. So this is the. So basically, is there anybody else who wants to show a graph like this? Any other group?
Group 8 has.
Group 8, you have. I think you did not show your bifurcation diagram. Do you want to show?
But we have done it, sir.
Yeah,
Praveen, you can.
Yeah. If any other, if there is any other group, just let me know if you want to show as well.
I can't share my screen until.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this was a plot which we did. This was for 200 time steps.
Okay. So up to 3.4, you have these, 2
by
4.
That becomes 4.
2 values at which you said they're going to sort of, going back and forth.
Yeah.
And beyond 3.45, there are actually how many values? 1, 2, 3, 4 values, right?
4 values.
Okay. Is this something? Is there any? Okay, I don't know about the last bit of 4 parts, but was everybody able to see this cyclic behavior? Is cyclic the right word here, by the way? Would cyclical behavior be the right word?
Yes, I guess, because by cyclic, it returns to the same point.
Oscillator, would oscillation be the right word here? It's oscillating. Population is oscillating between 2 values. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Right description? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So this diagram shows that between 0 and 1, there is a stable equilibrium of extinction. All of you agree with that? Between 1 and 3, there is a stable equilibrium, which is finite, right? And that is given by R0 minus 1 divided by R0, right? And between 3 and 3.45. So if you got it very right, you will find that this 2 cycle, oscillations between 2 values will continue up to 3.45. At 3.45, you will begin to see a 4, jumping between 4 values. Okay. So in that value, between this range of 0.45 units, we'll find that population is oscillating between two population densities. Do all of you agree with this? I hope that all of you, even if you have not done the complete plotting, I hope all of you actually got this result. Is there anybody with this?
So, like, I have one question here.
Yes. What's your name?
Like, my name is Paris.
Paris, okay, yeah.
So, like, we too got oscillations. Just, I want to question that these oscillations are direct from, like, these are like continuous with generations, or they are just switching from one generation to other generation, like direct switching.
What do you think?
Like, they should be like gradually with generations. Like,
what do you mean by gradually with generations?
Like, if we have two endpoints of like a maximum and a minimum point, like of an oscillatory behavior. So switching occurs directly from the maximum point to the minimum point in one generation, or it goes through steps wise. So, like, I didn't figure it out. That's why.
That's a good question. So, in this model, we are only modeling, some arbitrary point in the within one generation, right? And we are sticking to it across. Now, what is happening within that? The within one generation processes and the numbers we are not capturing in this model, right? So we cannot say. So we cannot say what exactly is happening. So there are two ways to think about this model. We can say that these models are relevant only for the kind of species where the birth, death are discrete processes, and they happen at some well-defined periods. For example, many species have a breeding period, right? And they only give birth in that specific window. So wherever you have this, well-defined birth and death sort of cycles, which are discretely spaced, in those cases, these jumps are really abrupt. There will be no sort of, it won't be like a simple harmonic oscillation. It will really be more of a jump. However, if you think that this is more on the continuous side, but discreteness is a sort of a bad approximation, yeah, then maybe it could be a more of a continuous process as well. But I think, mathematically, it's more appropriate to think that this is a sort of a feature of a discrete population model.
Fine, sir. Yes.
Any other questions? Anybody else who wants to show the results?
We have a question from something we observed in our plots.
Sure.
Who
is this?
A group 1.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I'll just share my screen.
Sure. This is Akash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Switch on your video if possible.
Yeah, sure. 1 second.
Yeah. That way we all at least see each other once in a while.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Not your screen.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, you lost. We lost you. Or
Sir, that's okay. I'm in the same group. I'll just share the plots.
Go ahead, Akshay. Yeah.
Just 1 minute. Okay. Right. Yeah, so one of the things Akash we couldn't reason out is why like beyond 3.4 this seems to go like out of phase, like, right? Because all the other values that even over here, if can you see my cursor? No, right?
Yes, we can.
I can see your cursor.
Right. So our question basically was, initially all the values are they do oscillate, but eventually they go to one side, and just
what are the multiple curves representing?
Oh yeah, they're each of these colors, as in
okay,
right? And beyond 3.4,
they're all different values of R0.
Yes.
Okay, so first, second question I have is, why are they all continuous curves? you have a discrete model, right?
That might be the problem. Huh.
So,
Right.
how do you have values
That
between
was
10 and
Akash.
11?
Sorry?
How do you
I
have
think
values
that's
between 10 and
Excel
11?
plot.
Wait, someone else spoke.
I think there's this Excel plot.
Oh,
exactly.
You're smoothing in some way between the two data points.
Okay.
Then I don't know what's happening. Well, despite the smoothing, it's very clear that it is out of phase in some parameter regimes, right? If I only look at not the interpolation parts, but only the maximum values, they are different. So you can ask why are they different? First
They're
of all,
different for 3.4 to 3.5. Those are the three that
3.4 to 3.5. I mean, why should they be same? Let me ask another question. They're all for different values of R0s, right? They all have different growth rates. Why should they be same?
I don't think we wanted them to be same either, but we just observed that this was happening, and maybe if we run it for more generations, something like that.
No, I don't think out of phase will go away magically. That will stay. Okay, but the expectation that if we have two very close by values of R0, right? Okay, you expect that they will behave very similar. But why should R 3.2 and 3.4 behave similar? There's no good reason to expect that behavior, right? But very close values, yes, you expect them to behave similar, right? Okay, so this is what you have all found now. That's correct. Now let's ask why. How do you explain these? What is did you expect that you will find this kind of oscillatory patterns? Or let's also go back to the assignment question. What was the first assignment question? I said you consider a dragonfly population that shows oscillatory patterns. What are come up with hypotheses of why it might be true? Can some of you tell me what were your answers?
So I wrote the predatory species numbers might go up if you
so
have
basically you're saying a dragonfly is probably a predator or a prey, and if you put them together, we know there are these cycles. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something like if birds migrate and they start hunting dragonflies, something like that.
Okay, if birds migrate. Okay, no, that's a different thing. So what you're saying is dragonfly are the prey, and
Yes.
there are birds that come in, and therefore they start hunting dragonflies. Therefore the numbers go down,
Yes.
and then the birds go out again.
Yes.
And therefore the numbers go up again, right?
Correct.
So that's an example of where there is a driver, external driver. Let's say a death rate in this case. So an oscillatory death rate is causing an oscillatory pattern in the population size, right? Is that right?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Okay. That means basically an external factor which is oscillatory is causing. Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking along the lines of a drastic population change. So what I was thinking was that when you're increasing the R0 value too much.
No, let's not worry about what you have
there
found.
There is some sort of an inertia.
Let's go back.
No, I'm correlating it. I'm correlating it to that itself. So, so what I'm saying is that the reproductive capability there is sort of a function of NT as well. So if I perturb NT quite a lot, like by like a huge amount immediately, then the value of R itself is perturbed by quite a high amount. So even when you approach the stable region after the drastic population change, there is sort of a non-zero R value still there, which will drive the population either up or down, depending on what the drastic change was. Which is why I think we are having these high oscillations occurring when the R0 value is too high, right? Because when the R0 value is too high, there is like the R value is unable to reach a value of 0 when the stable population is being achieved. So it's sort of like overflowing. Once it overflows, there it is where it goes into negative, and then it comes back down again. But since it has gone back into negative so much, it can't really stabilize there. So it's sort of like an oscillation set out there. I'm not sure if I'm correct in thinking.
Yeah, so you're trying to explain the results you have found in the simulations you have done today. But my question was, what did you answer for assignment number question? Assignment question number 1.
A drastic population change. A drastic population change.
Any other
something
answers?
that perturbs, and the predator one that Akshay talked about.
Seasonal condition fluctuations.
Seasonality, okay, that's a very clearly, seasonal, for example, if you look at, vegetation density as a function of time, it will show strong seasonality in various places, right? Because in season, in rainy seasons, grasses and shrubs, they sort of, rapidly grow and they also die very fast. Okay. Any other
Also,
reasons?
dragonflies have a larvae which is aquatic.
Yeah.
And the gestation periods could be different. And when they're in the water, your overall flies might be low, depending on which breeding phase they are in. Your numbers.
So you think this could be a breeding phase related stuff?
Yeah.
Basically, there's a breeding phase, and then many of them die, but the hatching and all will take some time to keep up.
Yes.
So there's an early death of a previous generation, but the numbers from the previous the offspring take some time to come out in the developmental process. Okay, yeah, that's also possible. Yeah, it could just be the life cycle. It's not the oscillation.
Exactly, just the life cycle itself.
Consequence of life cycle itself. Okay, yeah, life cycle, seasonality, and somebody said,
there could be
temporally varying predation, right?
Yes, temporal. It's like there could be seasonality in terms of its predation, as in dragons are the carnivores. Maybe the insects they eat breed, have a population explosion sometime only like once a year, and then otherwise they have to look for alternate sources, which causes like a sudden increase and then a dip again.
Yeah, excellent, very good. Yeah.
What about some prey dynamics?
Tarun, you were saying something?
Yeah, something like predator-prey dynamics. Where
absolutely, yes. That's also possible.
Predator numbers increase. The prey numbers increase.
Yeah, so this is not actually due to, predators coming from somewhere and going away. It's what you are saying is an entirely intrinsic process, right?
Right.
Predator
like
numbers.
Yeah.
So predator prey numbers go in cycles. Absolutely possible. Yes. Yeah. I hope other people who initially said understand the difference between what Tarun is saying and what you are saying. Okay, yeah.
It could be another possibility where the predator is an intentional predator. I mean, like it chooses dragonflies only when the dragonfly population is denser. But if it's sparse, then it'll choose some other prey to feed on.
Okay, that's again more like temporally varying predation, right? The first answer that somebody gave.
Could it also be intra-specific competition itself?
Who said this? Who was this? I couldn't. Kartikeya. Okay, intra-specific competition. Okay, yeah. So that's. Did you write that by the way in your answer?
No, sir. I wrote seasonality and.
That's fine. I'm just curious. Yeah. So
it can be a contagious disease as well, right? That
is
spread increases when the density of population reaches a threshold.
Oh, I see. You have a disease that spreads. That's again, somewhat similar to predator-prey cycles. Predators eat well when there are lots of prey. Therefore, the predator numbers increase to bring down the prey numbers. So, what you are saying is also possible. Instead of predator, you replace it with an infectious disease. Yes, possible. Yeah, a parasite, right? A parasite sort of plays the role of a predator.
So one more answer which I gave was between male and female of the same population. Say when you have more females, they tend to produce more males to balance this and vice versa. So that time when you have lesser females, so you'll have population will go down for a while, then it'll again increase.
So you're assuming that we are plotting only populations of one sex, not the both sexes. Okay.
No, we can plot the total population, but when the female population goes down, the total population will go down the next generation because they're the only reproducing partner.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I fully got your point. Yeah, but it's possible. I guess one can imagine the argument. Okay, so so except for what Kartikeya right now said, I think at least in the so there are various reasons that all of you given. They can be classified into three different reasons. Actually broadly two different categories. One is that there is something extra birth and deaths, and that is also seasonally varying. That is temporally varying, either seasonally varying or that is coming and going, in a spatial way. Okay, basically that's temporally varying. That's one class of answers, that many of you gave. And the other answer, the one that was different was that of Tarun, which is using the ideas of predator-prey cycles. And there are these classic, examples of where predators prey that actually stay in the same location, even in the absence of seasonal variation in the drivers, actually show intrinsic cycles. That's of course one possibility. And now the point that Karthikeya said, which is that, you know, intra-specific competition, okay, is the answer that's driving oscillations in the model we have just seen. In the model, what did we incorporate? We incorporated the fact that when the number of individuals increase, the R declines with population size, right? Now, why is this declining? Because as the population sizes are increasing, the amount of resources available for each individual is decreasing. And that's another name for that, which I haven't yet used, is what is called intra-specific competition. Competition between individuals of the same species. And in fact, in the discrete logistic model, there is no external parameter apart from R0, right? Is there any? R0 is the parameter that determines something about external influence. Right? When the population size is very small, what's the, you know, per capita birth minus death rate, right? So that's something that we can say that that is determined by the environment itself. Okay, in a very bad environment, R0 will be less than 1. Therefore, things go extinct. Yeah.
So hello? I think R0 won't be determined by the environment, right? It will be determined by the biology of the species, and then
but that in turn will be eventually determined by the environment also, right? Because if there are no resources, there will be no babies either.
R will be dependent on the biology, but R naught is a constant which is determined by the environment.
I think it's the other way around.
Well, both of them depend on both. You know, imagine there is nobody else. Mating is possible. Mating is possible, right? Let's assume that. Let's consider a very low density of population. How many offspring will an individual will have? Will depend on the resources available, right? If there are no resources, clearly there will be no. You know, if there is no food at all, you know, there will be no. On an average, the offspring will the number of offspring will reduce, right?
So isn't that why we add the
of course,
1
there is
minus
biology.
NT by K?
Say that again, sorry.
Isn't that why we add the 1 minus NT by K term so that we can scale by the environment?
No. So given the environment, what happens when n increases? That's what the 1 minus NT by K captures, right? Given the environment, now there are more and more individuals. That means there are lesser and lesser number of resources per individual. That's what that term captures, the decaying function. Density dependence captures that. But you're right, basically R0 is like the intrinsic growth rate of the system. It does depend on both the biology as well as the environment, right? An organism which cannot reproduce in an environment is not going to reproduce even when even there is no competition, right? Okay. So yeah, I think we were at the point where we were discussing what is causing oscillations here. So when we think of, can I just complete my argument, and then, you know, if anybody has comments, you are welcome to do so. Say again. So what is very interesting about the result we have found so far, which is that in this model, which is the logistic population model, in this window of between 3 and 3.4, you are finding that population density oscillates despite the fact that R0, which represents either the biology or the environment, or actually both, is actually constant, right? Which means that this cyclical behavior or the oscillatory behavior you're seeing is entirely a consequence of internal dynamics of the population group birth and death. Okay, and that is something, you know, could you have guessed that, by the way? Did any of you guess this will happen as you were increasing R0? Of course, some of you may have read about these, by the way, you know, let's say in popular books or maybe in a course. But assuming I'm going to exclude this question to those people, would you have guessed this would happen? You know, as you increased R0, you would have found oscillations. How many would have guessed? How many of you would have guessed this?
I'm not sure if I did guess it, but the way I looked at it was, since R0 is very huge in the beginning, then the population can immediately shoot up to more than carrying capacity, in which case it will have to calm down. But R1 will probably have very less resources. but also very less NT. And then now it'll again go up because R1 is still, if R1 is still large enough that it can shoot the population above carrying capacity, that is. As long as R is big enough for the population to go above carrying capacity at any time point, these oscillations will occur. And if we have,
so you were able to guess that. That's really remarkable. I was certainly not able to guess when I was a student that something like this would happen.
So
Sean,
is this
go ahead,
because we're using a discrete model? Does this
That's
occur in the continuous model?
That's a great question. We will figure that out next week. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So so the main point I'm trying to make is that except for people like Akash, without the kind of work that we just did, write down the equations and and work out by literally simulating these equations, it would be very hard to sort of make a argument that even when the environment is not oscillating entirely because of intrinsic dynamics of a population can actually show oscillations. So that's something relates to the question, it relates to first question. One possible hypothesis is that the oscillations would be entirely driven by intrinsic dynamics. Okay, and it also leads to the last question in the first assignment, which is that when you're evaluating a model, here is a criteria to evaluate, right? If model tells you what you already could have guessed, do you need a mathematical model? Well, I guess it does help because making my argument more mathematical will make my verbal argument stronger, right? On the other hand, if don't you think a mathematical model that actually tells you something that the verbal argument couldn't have said, isn't that really powerful and interesting both?
But does that mean you can't put your mathematical models into words? I mean,
no, it doesn't mean that. It just means that when you're arguing verbally, it's hard to come up with the kind of conclusions that a mathematical model would do. But of course, once you have a mathematical model, you can, in retrospect, you can argue it out verbally. In fact, it must always be possible to argue it out verbally, right? Otherwise, you don't understand the processes well enough in some sense.
Exactly, yeah.
But however, quantifying the processes and putting in mathematical terms helps you make these precise predictions. For example, even when Akash was saying, one could argue that having a larger R0 will push me above the carrying capacity, and that now has to come back. Now one can say when it is coming back, it need not go back so far, right? Now, how do you really say that? One can argue both ways. It will go this way or that way, right? But to know really if it really happens or not, and to know under what condition does it happen. For example, below 3, the same phenomenon happened, right? You actually shot up beyond carrying capacity, but you also when you're coming back, you are not shooting back too much. So therefore, it did converge to the equilibrium value. But beyond 3, that did not happen. Convergence to the equilibrium value did not happen. So therefore, you sort of had a new sort of dynamics, which is a cyclical dynamics, out even in the absence. That person must be necessarily smarter than somebody who uses mathematical model and arrives at the same conclusions, right? Because to be able to arrive at the same conclusion without using mathematical equations is much harder. Don't you all agree with that? It's much easier once you have put down an equation, just drag your Excel sheet and you'll get the answer. So it's actually much easier, in my opinion, to use mathematical models and arrive at conclusions than to use verbal arguments alone. So in fact, I actually really have much more appreciation for people who can make arguments without without mathematical models. Although a lot of people think the other way around. I think the exact opposite way, by the way.
How does one validate what they're saying verbally?
As in, I didn't understand the question.
So how would, say you make a statement, a logical statement, but how do you validate it? I mean, it's not like a mathematical proof, right? What you're doing, what you're saying.
But one can also argue the other way, right? You have a mathematical equation. How do you know it's applicable, right? So both of them can be argued, right? So what the mathematical model can do is, given that there are these precise mathematical equations that a system follows, then I can say this with confidence. Of course, no system will ever really do that. So that's always the challenge. Okay. So anyway, let's now get back to our homework again.
One small doubt.
Sure.
This bifurcation is like at an exact point, right? It's not a gradual growth, like as in it changes from one specific x star to two different x equilibriums at
at a specific value of R
9 to 3. Yeah. So there is a specific value of R there.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Okay, I still don't see how that's possible, without the math of it.
I agree. But there are 2 points to make here. There is, of course, the precise statements, of course, requires mathematics. But when we're understanding biology, we also want to understand the qualitative features that are possible, right? But in principle, I guess I can imagine somebody who is logically super sharp can arrive at these conclusions without necessarily mathematics. But of course, that person will not tell you R0 is equal to 3 is the next bifurcation point. Okay, but that person may tell you, hey, look, it's actually possible that if the growth rate is very large, it will overshoot the carrying capacity, and now it will have overshot so much that now it has to now come down, and that can actually again overshoot the carrying capacity, and this cycle may never end. But that person will not be able to tell what is the specific value when this might happen. Okay, so I'm going to stop this discussion here, and I want to ask a question now. Okay, so let us ask a very different question, which has nothing to do with what we have done so far. Now, what do you understand by predictability? All of us know what is a prediction. Prediction is something I say something, okay, this is what will happen after some time. Okay, or after you do this, if you do this process, if you do this action, this is the consequence. So the predictions one can make, right? What is predictability?
Is it some sort of scale for evaluating how good a model's prediction is?
Is it scale? Okay, maybe. Any other definitions? Yeah.
How accurately can you predict what comes next, knowing what you have known?
Okay, that's so. First point was a measure of how accurate the prediction was. So I think they both said different things, but I think I'm sort of merging them. Can both of you repeat? I mean, what did you say?
How capable you are, or how well can you predict the next value given the current or previous values?
Okay. You literally mean next value. Okay. What did Akshay? I don't know whoever said. What was your some measurement of how prediction is?
Yeah, but basically it's what Amir said, right? Because the way you measure prediction is know what happened observationally and compare.
Anything else?
So is predictability the property of a model or the property of a variable?
You decide and tell me. Let's make our life easy. Because we are studying a model, let's focus on the model. Just hold on for 1 second. I need to put my laptop for charging. 1 second. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead now. What's the next? Any other thoughts on how do you define predictability?
Maybe you can look at it this way. So after a finite amount of finite time steps, or maybe finite iterations, if you're able to come to a particular conclusion or not, or do you need an infinite loop to generate a particular prediction.
What is this loop you're talking about?
So let's say if I run it for like 1,000 time steps and I'm still not able to get a a conclusion out of the model, then I would say that it's not exactly a good predictability.
So basically, Amir was talking about next step only, but you are talking
Whereas
about.
if I'm able to get a good,
you just muted yourself.
sorry, I think I have a bad internet. I couldn't hear you.
So I think maybe, I don't know if it was mine. So you were saying that if you sort of iterate something for 1,000 time steps and see if it converges to something, right?
Exactly. If there is a convergence, then it is predictable. If there is a divergence, then there won't be a prediction.
Okay.
I don't.
So if we were to look at, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. Sorry.
So if we now look at Google algorithms for say traffic, it has all this data that it collects over how busy a road would be across different days. And if we say that we need to leave, say, from NCT to ISC in the next 10 minutes, it would give us a rough estimate of how long it would take on any given day. Or all of this is data collected over all this period of time. So in that sense, it's the prediction power that lets us yeah.
So basically you're saying predictability is prediction minus observed minimum. The smaller it is, the better.
Yeah, the better the predictive power of this particular model.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
We could look for trends or patterns in the output. If there's, so that's what, like Rashi pointed out, that a convergence might a convergence means that there is a lot of predictability. When it's diverging, there's not. But ultimately, I think it all comes down to, if there is a trend you can observe. Even if there's a trend you can observe, if it's an exponential graph, you can still predict that it will go to infinity, or like it will go to this particular value, that kind of a thing.
Okay.
So I think if there's a pattern to it.
So let me ask you this question. So the model that we are looking at, is it possible to define predictability for the model that we are currently discussing?
So like based on my understanding of it, on this pattern idea, this is actually something I wanted to ask you that time. It doesn't really make sense to me. So it does make sense why from 0 to 1 the population just becomes extinct, because the net reproductive rate is not enough. But then between 2 to 2.9, for instance, while R0 is increasing, you would expect that the oscillations will get bigger and bigger, but actually they all die down, and suddenly after 3 the oscillations are sustained. So this was not predictable. If I would have thought of it in the way
this
that
was difficult to guess. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because I would expect that if the oscillation are dying out, like becoming smaller and dying out from 2 to 2.9, what is different about 3? And then at a value like 5, the oscillations go above 1 and become negative. So the model fails. While in a biological scenario, it should not happen like that.
What do you mean by model fails?
As in,
and model is not failing. Model is just telling you what you have asked it to tell.
Yeah, I mean, the model fails in a biological context. You're getting NT by K bigger than 1 or negative, both of which are biologically not possible.
But that's only when NT is greater than K, no? I mean, that we have already said, please excuse this model for
that. Yeah, but I'm saying, my question was, R0 being 5, it should be biologically feasible. I don't see why not.
Okay. So R0 should be feasible biologically, but that's not possible because X then becomes greater than 1.
Exactly. So that's the
contradiction. That's a different problem. In this model, R0 should not exceed 4. Okay. So that is a problem with this model. That's more of a construction problem, the way we have constructed the problem model, but it's really nothing other than that. So let me not get into that problem too much. So so Rashi said something. If you iterate for 1,000, let's say, time steps, or a very long time step, and if the things don't converge, that's when I can say it's not predictable, right? Because so now let's think about that a bit more, and also what Amir and the Akash was saying in the beginning, right? Some measure of how good the prediction is across times, right? let's try to put these things together a bit. Okay, now let's assume, so we have a, in our model, is there anything stochastic about this model? Are there any elements of stochasticity in the model that we have written down right now? No, right?
No.
R0 is fixed in time, right? And then once R0 is fixed in time, and once you give a value of x0, right? Okay, and then you can predict the entire world, entire life of this model, right? You all agree with that? Okay. Let's assume that there is actually a population, a hypothetical population in the world, which exactly follows this model. Okay. Now, does it mean that we can predict this model's, this population size as a function of time across, as many generations as possible?
Yes.
Yes, because you just go and measure the current population size, right? And then that's your x0, and then you keep on iterating, right? All of you agree? And then from the degree time series, if this, if it so happens that the value of R0 for this island was 2.5, we know it will reach a stable equilibrium value. If the value of R0 was 3.2, we know it will reach an oscillatory pattern, right? And so on. All of you agree with this? Okay, now is this population a predictable population?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely right. If I add a small amount of stochasticity to this model, let's say R0 has a small variation across time, will that be predictable model or not?
You'll get some result, but there'd be a certain degree of uncertainty in that result.
Absolutely right, because because R0 is slightly varying over time. Let's assume the variation is, let's assume it's a very small variation. Okay, so you might say that at the end of 100 generation, the expected population size is, density is 0.7. You may find 0.72, right? 0.71, maybe 0.69. Okay, but it will be a minor error. Is that right? And that error will be proportional to the errors in the R0 itself. All of you agree with that? Would you still call it predictable? Or not?
Yes, sir. We will.
Okay, excellent. Now let's assume there is no stochasticity in R0 in this system. Okay. Let us say, however, that when I went and measured x0, the initial population size. So you remember one of the exercises I had asked you as a part of all of this is, vary x0, right? Why do you think it was important? In a biological context?
You're changing the initial conditions.
Why should I change initial conditions?
To see if that's, going to affect your model drastically, or if it's not going to impact your model at all.
Can you just repeat? Sorry, I lost.
To see if the change in initial population is going to change your observations drastically, or is it going to be independent of the factor?
Okay, very good, right? Okay. So why is that biologically important? Can I write one more step of argument for that? For example, if there might be one island, there may be two islands, both of them have, let's say, same R0 values. Maybe let us say they both have slightly different initial conditions. We can ask whether they will both reach same equilibrium population sizes, right? Is that a reasonable question to ask? Is that a biologically important question to ask?
We can also look at it this way, right? Any population initially has to have a driver population. So of that is certainly a very critical initial component of what happens to the population later.
Yeah, true. And that need not be same for all populations in the world.
Exactly.
Therefore,
yeah.
We must see what's the role of this initial condition, right?
Yeah.
Do you all agree? Therefore, the initial condition dependence is actually a very important analysis in any sort of model analysis. Okay. So now let's take this island. I went, let us say, and then I measured initial condition, initial population size. Will I make an absolutely correct estimate of it? Or will I make some small errors in doing so?
Precision matters.
There will be some errors I will make, right?
There will be.
Right, because anyway it's an estimator. It's not a count of every animal on the island, right? It's not a count of every plant on the island. So there will be some errors I will make, right? So I might make an estimate that x0 is 0.7, but the actual might be 0.69, maybe it is 0.171, right? Okay, but now I know R0, and then I can now make projections to the future. So will this x0 error that I made, will that given from what you have learned so far, will that make a difference? The error that I made in x0?
No.
No.
Unless the
R
model
is
is
the
like
one
0 or 1.
Yeah, unless it's like those extreme cases, you shouldn't, right? Because in every case that you have studied so far, it reaches the same either equilibrium value or the same oscillatory cycle, right? It's actually possible that small variations in initial conditions may make them out of phase, two trajectories, but will that be a big issue though?
No.
Worth thinking about. So now, so using this as an initial condition as a factor, what can you say about predictability of this model? Let's say I make some errors in the initial conditions. How predictable is my system in to this errors in initial condition? It's fairly high, right, from what you're saying so far. Is that right? Because because in all of your simulations you found that variations in initial conditions, apart from these extreme cases like 0 and 1, always led to same outcomes. Do you all agree with this?
Right.
Okay, excellent. So that means this is a predictable system. Do you agree with this?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So now we will resume our next breakout session, where you will explore this predictability in a bit more depth. Okay, and then I will tell you what you will do. I will just share my screen now. You're sharing fine now. Okay. Let's say there is a initial condition x0, right, and then project how xt changes with time given this x0, right? And of course this x0 is prone to errors. So let's say I take values of x0 plus or minus epsilon. Epsilon is a small error.
I have one doubt.
Can I complete my statement, please? If you don't mind?
Yeah.
And then again do the same projection. So you can say that if the projections match, I'm using the word projection fairly loosely here. If the projected, populations over time match, then you can say it's a predictable system. Do you agree? Is it fine? Is everyone fine with this? We can actually make a more specific definition, which is, let's say with x0 I make a projection for time t, which is x t what shall I say? Let's say this is xt. Okay, because this is xt and with an epsilon, let's call this time series. Let's call this time t series xt with an epsilon error. Okay, meaning you could have taken either plus epsilon or minus epsilon, where epsilon is a very small number, and then you plot that as a function of t. Okay, and then let's say now you calculate the error, which is given by xt minus x t epsilon. Is it fine? And then this will also depend on time. What is your expected pattern of ET? like for a predictable system?
It should decay over time, right? I mean, like it should gradually become zero.
Will have initially some variation, but it will decay.
This is an approximate graph, okay?
I think it should be bounded. It need not be decreasing, right? It should just be bounded.
Bounded to very small values.
Yeah,
So
it
fine,
should be an
bounded.
upper bound. That's all.
Okay, let's say in initial, let's not variable initial, but let's say there is an upper bound. See, there will always be an upper bound in our model because it's bounded between 0 and 1. Okay. Itself is between 0 and 1. So I'm hoping there's a bound you're talking about is probably really tiny.
Yes, some reasonable. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to be very sure. But you know, actually it shouldn't become an order of magnitude more than epsilon. Okay. You know, decaying or bounded in a reasonable way. Okay. I think mathematicians here can define that more carefully. So can you now, here is the exercise for you. So you will basically do this plot of ET versus T. Is that fine? I'm going to give you two, because you have less time now, I'm going to give you very specific values of R0. Okay, choose R0, these values. Let's say 0.5, do the same plot, 1.5, 2.5, 3.2, and 3.6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, choose x0, some value. Okay, exclude 0 and 1. Okay, this is a exclude 0 and 1, and then choose x0 plus epsilon. Let's say you choose an epsilon value of how much? 0.05. 0.05 is huge, right? And 0.01. Okay, choose these two, and then plot the time series as well. Plot xt versus t, xt epsilon versus t, and then also plot et. Plot all the three. You plot xt versus t, plot et. Okay, and for all these values, and then and verify our notions of predictability. Is that fine? Now I'll open for questions. Yes. Sorry, Bevan, I think you had a question. No, Bevan, sorry, I'll take.
Yeah. Like, aren't we also committing an error every time we calculate xt? Like the number of decimals or significant figures we take into consideration. Won't that kind of like add up?
It's a good question. That's, that's why I have chosen epsilon of 0.01. I'm assuming that the round off errors in computers are much smaller than that, which is a very reasonable assumption.
Okay.
But you can actually reduce epsilon even further if you like.
Can you go to the page where you have the R values?
Yeah, here. I think I have too many R values. You can actually use a few. Okay. See, this you have already done. Let's get off this. Okay. Let's focus on the. Let's have one maybe. Between 1 and 3, let's have only one value to save your time. Let's have more in this region. Okay. And you're welcome to add more values. The idea is that you will explore a bit more than what I have said. Okay. I have again given 2 epsilon values. That does not mean you should stick to the 2. This is the minimum we need to do. But I think R, is fine. R, I think you don't need to explore too much beyond this. At least to get the main point. Lakshya, you have a question. You have raised your hand.
So, I had a question regarding the bifurcation diagram that was drawn. So, you had asked us to draw x infinity versus the value of R naught, and you had defined x infinity, if I'm not wrong, in the class as one of the values it can take over the time. over large times. And we had taken these to be the extrema of the oscillatory function, which is why we got that. So I'm confused why it will take only one of these values, right? So what I did was I took a Fourier transform of this oscillatory area, and I found a delta function. So basically, it's only one frequency that's happening. So it's kind of like a sine function. So I don't know how you're defining the x infinity here. That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, I did not define it very carefully, and that was intentional because I wanted you to discover the fact that if you do take the naive definition of xt, which is to assume that there is only, in fact, only one value of xt asymptotically, you will actually be wrong, right?
Okay.
Because in oscillatory regime, you will actually have more than one value. Okay, so I was intentionally vague when I was defining xt.
Oh, makes sense.
So asymptotic value can be defined only if it is a stable equilibrium, a single value of equilibrium. Okay.
Also, I was curious, in the later part of the bifurcation diagrams, where there are 4 different points were visible for large enough R0.
Yeah.
There should be like technically 2 different frequency of oscillation, right?
Think about it. Did you find 2 different frequencies?
I haven't done the calculation.
Just what did you find? What did you find? I mean, you know the numbers. You have just go back and look at the numbers. You know the frequency.
Yeah, sure.
Why should there be 2 frequencies, or is it actually a single frequency? That you will know if you actually look at the numbers. You don't have to even do it for it. Okay. Is it clear now what you need to do? So some of you who need to leave at 5 immediately, get in touch with your group members. And again, like last week, I will make sure that submission deadline is for include your first part. Now that we have discussed, if you want to say anything more about the oscillatory patterns, do right. But the thing that I would like to discuss is the notion of predictability and what do you find here. Okay, is that fine? And I will be here up to 5, and then I have to leave after 5. And do you want this to be running for some more time? No, up to 5:30 maybe.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, I will keep the Zoom running up to 5:30, and then after that we will close. And if you are still not done by then, you can discuss over email, exchange your email addresses to coordinate. I think 2 p.m. tomorrow I think should be fine for submission. Is that fine? Okay, yeah. Let me just give you one small point in the end. Okay, take an extremely small value of epsilon. Also, I lost you. Rashi, was it you? I can't hear. Just to think, what does this mean? This is a error, small error, very small error. Okay, and how does the predictability depend on the errors I make in the initial population estimation? Okay, cool. I'll stop sharing my screen. So I'll start the breakout rooms. I have opened all the rooms. Please go back and join the rooms.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, I'll have like there's a quiz I informed you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So leave at 5. Will that be okay?
Fine. Just coordinate with your other group members.
Yes, and also, sir, can you extend the timeline for submission, because tomorrow we have like another quiz also.
Okay. Fine. When do you need it?
Maybe in the evening tomorrow would work. Anytime in the evening.
Sounds good.
Yes. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah, sure. Bye.
Hey, my breakout room is not visible for me to join. Shoaib, Tanveen, are you guys?
Hi, tell me, Shubha. Hi.
Yeah, I am not finding my breakout room.
Unassigned, it says. What was your room previously?
8.
Same for me.
Pavitra,
Yeah,
what was your
it just
room?
came.
Pavitra, what was your room? Pavitra.
Yes, I'm unable to join the breakout room. Actually, there were some glitches
Can you
in my
tell
PC.
me? Can you tell me your room number?
10.
Vivek.
Thank you, sir.
Vivek.
9.
Sir, actually, I got into a good wrong group.
Paras.
Yes.
What's your room number?
Mine is 2.
Akash.
1, sir.
Who is A Britty?
Tanvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can you put people in the breakout rooms when they ask?
I'm not the co-host.
Like, if I make, like, can you do that? Like in your Zoom version, is there?
Somebody will have to make me the
Yeah, yeah.
co-host. Or
Can you make your the co-host?
Tanvin, you are the co-host now.
Yeah.
Hear me? Yeah, can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
People might get logged out and all, then you need to put them back. And the second thing is, I will be leaving at around 5. It's actually very soon.
Okay. Okay.
And this needs to run up to 5:30.
Okay.
So
Okay.
can you close at 5:30?
At 5:30. Okay. I just want to check if I can do, put people into breakout rooms.
Can you put Minal into room? Minal?
Yeah, my internet got disconnected. And
What room are you supposed to be in?
10. I was in 10, room number 10.
Ranvin, can you?
Let me check.
So just click on the breakout rooms, you get the entire list, no? You will see unassigned on the top.
Okay.
And then if you
No, I can't see that. I mean, I'm able to see the breakout rooms. I can join them, but I cannot see it separately.
at the very top, do you see unassigned?
No. Yeah, I'll just see if I can click on her
Tell me,
name.
Minal, what's the room you are supposed to be in?
10.
Okay, I have moved her there.
Yeah.
I can make you host, Tanvin.
Okay, I'll try. I'll see if I can do that. I mean,
Shall I just make you host then?
fine. Yeah.
Okay, you are the host now.
Okay.
I can't. I lost all my powers now.
Yeah. Okay. Make co-host.
No, I can't. Can you make me co-host again because I can't go back to.
Okay. Wait. Should I make you co-host?
Yeah. Yeah. And now I can. Oh, I still can't go to breakout rooms. Interesting. So I can't go to breakout rooms
Should I
anymore.
make you the host?
Oh, but earlier Arun had made me.
Yeah.
What did you do then?
One second.
With some additional setting to allow breakout, some breakout room options will be there, which I think I don't have.
Yeah, I can't see even the that unassigned also. I can't see
Now
that.
there's no unassigned.
Okay. Still, yeah, I couldn't see the setting.
Hi Tanvin, what's the status now?
I'm trying to join through my laptop. I think then I might see.
Oh, you're using your phone.
No, that iPad. So I think maybe because of that.
But somehow, even though I'm here, I can't see the things anymore. They're all gone.
Okay. Now I can see that. The unassigned and all.
Okay, that's great. Everything is in control. The only I can also now go to breakout room suddenly, interestingly. Very interesting.
Okay.
Vivek Yadav has come. Can you admit him and put him wherever he needs to go?
Who has come?
Vivek Jadhav. Ask him where does he need to go.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
if he was already previously assigned, he will just go on his own. Just admit him first. No, you have to admit him first.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Hey Vivek, which room were you in?
Group number 9.
9.
Yeah. Thank you.
Should I tell